Today, we're pleased to welcome two individuals who are really making a difference in Cleveland. First, Thi Bennett, who serves as the Administrative Director at Digital C, and is a woman who wears multiple hats. She's an attorney with Cabbage, and she's the Director of Programming and Development for the Cleveland Police Foundation. She holds her Juris Doctorate and MBA from Case Western Reserve University and has a strong background in supporting youth, in particular in education. She served on the State Board of Education and as the Director of East Cleveland Department of Community Development. Her civic commitments with Jack and Jill of America and Junior Achievement are further demonstration of her commitment to improving the quality of life and educational opportunities for our young people. She is a graduate of our Civic Leadership Institute and our Dance Leadership Institute, and a proud mother, a daughter, and two sons. We also want to give a special welcome to Grant Denner, who is the Vice President and CEO of Weinberg Wealth Management, where he served for 15 years. Prior to that, he was President and CEO of Global Sports and Promotions. He too received his law degree from Case Western Reserve, and he's a very busy man outside what he does at Weinberg Wealth Management. He serves as the board president for the Mosque Museum, and previously served as board chair of the Hebrew Shelter Home. He received the Founders Award from the Cleveland Police Foundation and the Leadership Award from Jewish Family Services. The role he fills as board president of the Cleveland Police Foundation is a large one, and he entered it determined to make it an organization of excellence, prestige, and purpose. The Cleveland Police Foundation, if you don't know, is the official charity for the Cleveland Division of Police, and they fund youth and community outreach programs. They support community policing and work with safety and crime prevention. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our experts. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Marianne, thank you very much for those kind words. And Marianne, thank you very much for introducing us to Nicole and to Rachel. And I would like to commend you on living up to the name of the Leadership Cleveland Center. It is just exactly what you've done with the Pledge of Cleveland, to pledge to everybody to promote equity and inclusion in their daily lives in Cleveland. And for all those that are on the Zoom with us today, please make sure you go to clevelandleads.org, and I encourage you to jump online and take the pledge. And that's, again, put together by the leadership of Marianne and Rachel and Nicole, and take the pledge to promote equity and inclusion. With that, I'm going to segue a little bit into my background with the Cleveland Police Foundation. Unbeknownst to many, a lot of large cities have large foundations that sit along the police department and the community. They operate independently of one another, and despite being around for hundreds of years, our police department, our foundation is actually only 15 years old. It was incorporated in 2015, which seems very, very late into the game, and I agree with that. A couple of years later, it got started. So we've been in business probably around 8 to 10 years operationally. The Cleveland Police Foundation was established back in 05 by Sam Miller, Tom Ganley, Ed Lozick, all of who are visionaries in the community and who were looking for the best for Cleveland and what Cleveland has to offer, both not only politically and corporately, but obviously for the police department and the residents of whom they serve. Originally, the mission of the Cleveland Police Foundation was pretty simple. It was to support the umbrella agencies that were out there fundraising independently of one another, and agencies that you've probably known, from Cops to Kids, Police Athletic League, the Honor Guard, the Pipes and Drums, the Mounted Unit, and to honor those individuals that might have fallen in the line of duty. But more recently, as you can imagine, the initiatives and the mission of the Cleveland Police Foundation has evolved. It's evolved into two very, very important aspects, in addition to, not instead of, but in addition to supporting those umbrella foundations. The first, which I'm not going to spend very much time on today because of our limited time and availability, is to help with the internal relations and morale development of the police force. It's a big, big issue today. Our police are understaffed. Our police are exhausted. Our police are going out in a challenging environment, and there's a lot of programs that we've done to work on officer wellness and officer well-being at the same time. Doing programs like different yoga and mental visualization and police officers of the month to let the police men know and police women know that they are valued and a critical part of the cycle of making this Cleveland the place that we all deserve. Equally important and probably more relevant to today's concept is also our work in the space of community policing. So if we look back a little bit, we have the Community Police Foundation being formed in 2005. It was originally formed for the umbrella agencies and also does some stuff with the wellness. But for the rest of the time and the rest of the program today, we're going to follow up on this very deep concept of community policing. See, back in the days, residents of the inner city, of the city proper, often knew their name of their officer, of their neighborhood patrolman. They were alongside their patrolman, their postal worker, and their milkman. You would know the person's name and have direct access. There was a certain pride, there was a certain equity in that brand, and there was a certain responsibility and accountability between the officers and the community. Today, times have changed. Obviously, budgets are cut, resources are limited, the environments have changed, and at best, the community members within the city of Cleveland might see a patrol car zooming through their neighborhood, looking, quote unquote, looking for issues, with a very limited time to build personal interpersonal relationships and the trust that is deserved between the relationship between the officer and the community. So consistent with the consent decree that was issued by the Department of Justice under President Obama, the Cleveland Police Foundation, alongside community activists and community advocates, as well as the police division and the division of police, have focused a lot on community policing. It has become a priority in all that we do, the money that we raise and the time that we spend. So today we have some existing programs. We have numerous programs where we create a safe space for officers, male and female, to interact with kids and community members whom they serve. Whether it's a Cooking with Cops program, where the kids and the cops actually get together to cook home-cooked meals. Whether it's our gun buyback program, where we're partnering with the community members to get guns off the street, or creating little free libraries, where are different outposts throughout the city, where libraries are filled and taken home by the kids, and they're filled again with the cops. One of my signature programs that I got exposed to, or a more signature anecdote, was on March 2nd a few years ago. I know it was March 2nd because it was Dr. Seuss's birthday. And I was with one of our liaison officers reading some stories to some kids in one of the inner city underserved locations. And he was dressed in a uniform. I was dressed in my version of blues, which is a blue shirt, no tie. I mean, blue suit, no tie. And after the stories, there was a question and answer session. And one of the little kids raised their hand and said, yeah, I have a question, which I anticipated to be something about the story we had just read. Again, one of the Dr. Seuss's. And in no uncertain terms, a young kid had asked us, how much do you guys get paid for killing us? He was inquiring, and it still brings chills to me, how much police officers get paid for shooting and killing young people in the community. Obviously, this I hope this story resonates, because it's something that I think about, not daily, but every time I get up and do some work for the Cleveland Police Foundation. So I'm honored to serve as the board chair. I'm honored to be a significant donor, both of my time and my resources. And I'm going to ask Angela to focus next on one of our signature programs that we literally developed here in Cleveland, I think 3 years ago, between the Cleveland Police Foundation and the community, which is called the Public Safety Career Pipeline Program. And I'm going to ask Angela if she would to do a deep dive into this pipeline program. Why the pipeline program? As you can imagine, recruitment for new academia classes in general continues to be a struggle. Recruiting in underserved areas poses even to be more of a challenge, as members of those communities see officers, and today's officers, as antagonists who racially profile them, treat them disrespectfully, and in worst cases, beat or even kill them, as we've seen recently. Common sense tells us And the research and empirical data confirms for us that having a police department that racially and ethnically reflects the population that it serves is instrumental in improving those relations between the police and the community. To me, this is community policing. And in Cleveland, we're not quite there yet. When we, the Cleveland Police Foundation, did a study, I think it was in the fourth quarter of 2016, 3-4 years ago, we found, as an example, that 53% of the city of Cleveland residents are Black, while only 23.1% of the police department is Black. We knew something had to be done. We knew something had to be done to bring up more officers that understood the culture and the environment of the people they served. So that gave us the solution of the Public Safety Career Pipeline Program. And Angela, if you're ready, I'm going to share the screen with you to share a 2 or 3 minute video that introduces our guests to the details of the pipeline program. And then you'll take it from there.
Okay, thanks a lot, Grant. So first, Rachel, Mary Ann, nice to see you again. Nicole, thank you so much for having us. And before I start, I just really want to give a shout out to my kids who are joining us today from the pipeline program. We kicked off our 4th season. Holler, hey y'all. We kicked off our 4th year yesterday. So even in the midst of COVID-19, we've adjusted our program because of our commitment to our young people and also to their demand. They wanted, in spite of COVID, to make sure that this program moved forward. So I am going to now share my screen and show you a video. The program today is the Public Safety Career Pipeline Summer Program. The whole mission and purpose of the program is to expose kids ages 13 to 19 to careers in public safety, police, fire, and EMS. And through that exposure, we also have a heavy focus on soft skills development, as well as finding their voice and becoming leaders and change agents, in their community.
So today, our students are having their annual competition to close up the programs. And essentially what they're doing is they're presenting their research and their capstones. They are participating in their mock interviews, and they are receiving professional headshots.
This program is really different. Like, it's not like other summer programs. This program will help you better yourself. It just helps you expand your mind in different types of ways you never thought you could.
I feel like it was a growing experience, not just for me, but for the kids too. It opened me to the possibility of working with kids who come from multiple different backgrounds. And it was not only just a growing experience, but it turned us into a family. So
I really enjoyed this program a lot because when I first got here, I was actually homeless. When I started the program, like a few days before we actually started the job, I was homeless. And I had been through a lot of stuff. I'm only 15 years old, but I had a lot going on in my life, and this program actually helped me a lot, just trying to heal.
I stay to myself, always been like that ever since. This program, it brought me out my shell.
So for today, what has been so rewarding for me, and I think for the kids, is that while we are exposing them to careers in public safety, ultimately what we want our kids to do is to see their own potential and realize that they have all of these gifts and these talents and these abilities within them. It's just really helping them to see it and bring it out and find their voices so that they can really be the best version of themselves.
I see the students like a garden. So my job is to water whatever seeds that are existing within them, to plant some that will help blossom later on, if not now, if not within these 6 weeks, sometime in the future, because I think that they're capable, they are full of potential, brilliance, and they just need that support system.
So I thought that was the best way to kind of share what our public safety program is. It's like we said, we not only expose them, but it's really about bringing out the best, because whether our kids go into careers in public safety or not, we're investing the time and the resources and the love to really help develop them to be the best person. So, some stats, since we started, again, this is our 4th year, but for the past 3 years, we've served over 150 youth, ages 13 through 19. We have, over a dozen youth that are in college at various colleges and universities around the country that we are supporting, that have continued on. We prepare our kids in career and college readiness. So they go through behavior-based mock interview training. They also develop a capstone project, which you kind of saw the posters, and they identify a public health issue. And then they come up with a solution and they research. So we help them with their researching skills and their writing skills and their presentation skills. And I think and we have different students on the phone, but on the call, I think what's been most impactful when you talk about healing, when you look at the unrest, our kids have gone through a tremendous amount of trauma. And so what we have found is very important is making sure that we have trauma-informed counselors that are present. And we have what we call our Voices Matter sessions, where we address and talk about different issues. So I guess with that, we can, open it up. Oh, actually, before we go to that, Grant touched on a couple things before we move on to questions. Grant talked about the officer wellness and cultural transformation. And I wanted to give the people on the call some sort of background. I don't want to go deep into it, but I do want to give background as to why we focus on wellness for our officers and having development and training programs for them. It is important that if we want the best officers that are out there serving our community, that we invest resources into developing those officers. So that's when we instituted the cultural transformation work to move our officers from a warrior mindset to a guardian mindset in protecting and serving our community. And so with the trauma that even our officers experience on a day-to-day basis, it's important to provide them with those resources to help support them. And really the premise behind the public safety program is when you talk about community policing. I grew up in East Cleveland. I'm a graduate of Shaw High School. At a time where I grew up, we had great relationships with police officers because they did know us. But then those things have shifted. And so what we're trying to do with the Cleveland Police Foundation is move community policing from what we do to you in the community, because so often things are done to us, but really recognizing that people in the community have assets, they have strengths, and they are the best experts to know what's best for themselves and their communities. And so from our perspective from community policing, it's really engaging with the community and finding out what is their voice and making sure that they have an active participation in how we bring about change. And so even with the public safety program, the students, people look to me as the coordinator or the program director, but it's really not me. It's really the students who shape and build this program. I'm really there as a support system. Tanasia Powell, who's our program coordinator this year, she started off as a participant, moved up to a team leader last year, and now she's a program coordinator this year. And then Carrington Mans, who's our program assistant, has been with us since day one of the program and has literally grown up through the program and just graduated this year and is going to college.
While we have a minute or two, Angela, can you speak to a daily exposure that our kids, all of whom, again, who are with us today, that I'd like to recognize and thank them for their commitment to making a difference? What a typical day would look like if they were exposed to one of the police departments?
So typically, pre-COVID, our days would, there was a lot of movement. We did a lot of transportation. So we have the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. They have a curriculum called Law in Your Community, where it's an interactive, hands-on curriculum where they're learning about their rights. They're learning a lot about government and the 3 branches of government. and how to deal and engage with police officers. So whenever they're teaching a lesson, say it's domestic violence, then we're making sure, so that happens in the morning along with, it's a rotation. They'll have an Our Voices Matter session with the counselors, and they'll work on resumes, but whatever that topic is with the police officers in the afternoons, we take a field trip and we actually go and work and talk to the officers. So we'll go down to the Justice Center and meet, and they'll meet directly with the detectives in the domestic violence unit or in the sex crimes unit. That's a big, huge topic because you have sexting, right? You know, text messages and ways in which kids can get in trouble without knowing, you know, absolutely without knowing. So we do want to empower our kids with knowledge. We talk about consent. We'll be, the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center is also a partner with us. So they were just here yesterday facilitating workshops on consent. But you kind of see how the different, and then we work with the Domestic Violence Center as well. So what we try to do is take a topic and approach it in multiple ways from different agencies. So it kind of helps to reinforce the language with our kids. And so we usually work 6 weeks. We do various field trips. And at the end, pre-COVID, we would have a 3-day overnight at Hocking College where then they will be immersed into their public safety program there. But with COVID, we've had to abbreviate. And so we have a hybrid model where they're in person 3 days a week, and then they're on Zoom 2 days a week. And today is one of our Zoom days. And so this morning, they were doing their career assessment with future plans, and they had started their PowerPoint certificate, the Microsoft PowerPoint certification training.
And then at the end of the summer, we focused a little bit on the Capstone project, which is, again, an in-depth, detailed research project. Can you give us an example of a detail of a problem or a solution that has been covered and isolated by one of the kids in the last 3 years and presented to as a capstone?
Yeah, so the mental health impact of police violence on youth. That's one of the topics, and I mean, there's various topics around police violence, whether it's from the mental health, a lot of mental health issues, rape. You know, I don't know if you saw in the video, you saw like, you know, my body. So we don't determine the topics for them. They have free reign to choose their topics. They talk about education, you know, the inequalities of funding and education is a topic. You would be amazed at the different topics, but any of our police related topics, no matter how challenging or controversial they may be, those are topics that they work on directly with the police officers, and they help them kind of walk through that and kind of unpack those issues.
So one thing that I've learned a little bit from the chief directly is the best way to prevent a bullet is with a job. And what that means is if you can find something, we know we need capable women and men everywhere in the safety force, not just the police officers, EMS, fire. And if we have a need for them and we have these resources of untapped gems in the youth, some of which are sitting on the Zoom call with us today, it's our job, it's our responsibility, it's our obligation to expose them to law enforcement as a career pipeline, as a career opportunity. To do so, we're not asking them to take the summer off. We're asking them, we pay to come and work. We challenge them individually. We ask them to do a deep dive in the capstone program. They get paid for attending. They get skills for skill development from doing so. Best case scenario, 100% of these kids, which is again over 4 years, over 150 kids, did you say, Angela?
Yes.
Would become officers. Pretty unrealistic. Worst case scenario is 100% of these kids go back to their communities, are ambassadors, not our ambassadors, but our ambassadors for the concept of community policing, which our society, both Cleveland and nationally, as you know, is desperate for. The city of Cleveland could be a leader. Getting back to leadership and getting back to Marianne and Rachel and Nicole is about leadership. The city of Cleveland could be a leader in developing a program like this to develop and educate and expose young children and kids, and now older teenagers, to law enforcement as an opportunity for employment. So I know I was supposed to stop at 12:25, and Rachel's smiling because it's 12:26. But I think there's a couple questions maybe you want to shoot for Angela and I.
Great. Well, thank you both. And definitely there's some questions that have come in. So to start looking at the youth program, how do you stay in touch with the young people in your summer program to keep their interest in public safety until they are old enough to take the exam?
That's a good question. So we are working on that. I mean, it's a matter of resources and time, when they get back into, the school year. But that is, it's informal. So right now it's an informal process. We've tried to, continue Our Voices Matter throughout the school year. But it's something that we definitely need, resources to help support that effort. But the kids do reach out, they need referrals, if they need help. All of the program leaders are available. I'm available. They all have my cell phone number and all of my contact information. So whenever there's recommendations, some have come on, so we have some of them that work here now at Digital C who are in college that are brand ambassadors. So we do stay in touch with the kids.
Hey, Angela, another thing that I saw pop up in the chat room is the length of the program. How is it different from years past to this year?
So it's normally 6 weeks, but with COVID, we had to condense it to 4 weeks because part of our program, part of our kids are funded through Youth Opportunities Unlimited. And so what we try to do is adapt our schedule to their schedule.
I'm going to take a little bit of a risky question just to do so, but a listener asked us about police in employment, our staff being understaffed, our division being understaffed, and the effect of a Black Lives Matter type movement. I don't want to single them out directly, influencing the police department. So I don't think there's empirical data, and if there is, I'm not the best person to be quoting empirical data. But we know that regardless of Black Lives Matter, that today the rewards of being a police officer are not as noble as they were back in the day when there was mutual respect between the community and the members, between the community and the officers. So I don't attribute that at all to a Black Lives Matter influencing, but we do know that time is for change. We do know that the Leadership Center of Cleveland put out a pledge. We do know it's our role in our limited space to be able to fill the pipeline for doing so. If it's consistent with some of the advocacy groups and activist groups out there, that's great. But I would say that this program is going in its 4th year. And even 4 years ago, it was overdue. So being a police officer today is not rewarded as it used to be. And obviously financially, but also I speak to a lot of the officers that, kiss their wife or husband and kids away when they leave in the morning and wonder if they'll be coming back. So the risks are higher, the money's not as attractive, the community relations is very attenuated and distant. So I think those are all contributing factors to a full employment. You want to add anything to that, Angela?
My position, I think the concern of I think the movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, is long overdue. It's been, the issues and the concerns that have been raised are not just only issues and concerns within our community, but by Black officers, within the police department. So if there's an influence, I think it's an overdue influence, and it's necessary, because if we're going to change the culture of police departments, then we have to be willing and we have to be courageous enough to have those tough conversations, because that's the only way we're going to affect change. And we have to make sure that the community's voices are first and foremost, because that's who we're serving. We're serving the community. And so we need to do it.
I'm sorry, when you talked about leadership, we were doing some research the other day that across the major cities in the US, 80% of the chiefs of police are white males. 4%, less than 5%, 4% of the chiefs of police in major cities are African American, and the statistics get even worse when it comes to bringing in African American, white and Black females. So I hear the question, and it's certainly overdue. Angela, can you talk a little bit about Cops for Kids too? There's Cooking with Cops, excuse me. Cooking with Cops.
So Cooking with Cops is a 4-part series. It's really our Kicking with Cops. So we do Cooking with Cops, Crafting with Cops, Kickball with Cops. There's one more. Oh, and Cleaning with Cops. And so what we do with Cooking with Cops, and COVID kind of stopped that this year, is we have a cooking competition in each of the 5 police districts where the community policing officers team up with the school, and we break the teams up. And so whoever wins from that district goes on to a citywide competition at Tri-C's Culinary School. So with my education background, of course, it's intergenerational. So that's where the Jane Addams Culinary Department, Culinary School at CMSD, their high school students actually organize the district competition, come up with the recipes, the mystery bag. We team up with the middle school. And then the Tri-C culinary students actually organize the citywide competition, and then they come downtown, and it's just really fantastic televised live event. And I believe District 2 won the last time, but it's a great event. And the kickball gets a little rowdy. So the officers love everyone loves the kickball competition as well. But we don't do that district-wide. We do it in each of the, 5 police districts. And the police they don't just let the kids win. So we had to split where before the first year they did it was cops versus kids. That gets, so then we said, okay, then we mix the teams with kids and cops on one team because it gets super, and even that's competitive. So it's a lot of fun.
So we've had a request to have some of the students who participate in the program share some of their experiences, and saw in the chat that 2 of the students were mentioned. So if they want to jump in, they're more than free to share.
So
you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
So Carrington, I know, did you want to talk about what was the most valuable part of the program for you and why? Because you started with me from day one, right? I mean, you're my ride to die. When we were Tri-C, it was just, we were literally creating it on a wing and a prayer. So can you kind of talk about, your experience and why you have stayed with it?
I would say my experience, the best part of it was being with like-minded people who because when we first started, I wasn't always the most knowledgeable about Black issues, because it didn't really affect me until I got into high school. So being there, hearing about other issues, and knowing that I wasn't the only one going through it, that was the best part. And it was just a way for me to feel more related to myself and pretty much my people. So that's why I kept going with it.
Okay. Thanks, Carrington. I think Tanasia, where are you? I think she's on. Oh, I see. Oh, you know what? Actually, our original program coordinator, I see Kat is on here. Kat, are you able to give her comment? She's actually the one that's in the video.
Sure. What was the question again?
Just kind of talk about the program and why it's, why you felt it was important. Just kind of your reflections on it.
So one of the things I really enjoyed about the program was that it was a space where students could bring their most authentic selves. And so the only requirement that, really that this was placed on the students was that be willing to grow. And so we kind of live by the motto of growth is the outcome. And you really begin to see that with the students from the transformation from, week 1 to week 6. You see how students are able to grow, not just in their professional skills, as far as presenting and acing their mock interviews, but also with each other, just becoming more knowledgeable about their peers and more knowledgeable about some of the topics that we're covering, and also about public health issues and how that ties into public safety and the mission of the program. So.
Thanks, Kat. And I think it's also to note, with the relationship that they establish with the officers over the summer, those relationships don't end. So they have full access to the police officers they've developed relationships with. And some of the kids, when issues arise, they will reach out to the officers. And if situations arise in their personal life where we need their support, the officers more than willing to, are there. They know the kids by name, the kids know them. So relationships. So even if our kids don't go into public safety, we've had an opportunity to really change their perspective on police officers and really so that they're able to say, you know what, it's not all of them, right? Because I know these officers and they actually really care about me. So I think that makes a significant difference as well.
Angela, there was a great question in the forum somewhere about community policing and what our goal has been as it relates to community policing. And the question, having putting my finger on it, but about it, is community policing something every officer is required to do or only specific members? And I think what the culture that we've tried to co-develop with the city of police is it's not one person's job to go over there and community police as a verb. Rather, embedded in each officer is the empathy and the compassion and the understanding to be a more community police oriented officer. So it is something that taken out of the corners of a work environment and say, hey, you over there, go do it. It's for each officer from the Chief Williams on down to the newest academy that need to understand and embrace the concept of community policing. And with that understanding and with that vision and with that clarity, I think we have the chance to build the relationships back to where they were at one day where Angela was talking about where she grew up, reinstill the values that the community deserves. And then I think, or I hope, that alongside of that trust, the pipeline program will be one of many opportunities for kids to fill the missing pipeline of officers that empathize, that look like, and are understanding with the community that the current officers serve.
Yeah, I guess just to also piggyback though, Grant, I think there's a distinction between the Cleveland Police Foundation and the Cleveland Division of Police, because while we have a mission and work, we don't control. And so ideally, we would like every single officer, to have the spirit of community policing, but that's not how the department is structured right now. We have a Bureau of, now it's changed from community policing to Bureau of Community Relations. And we have, designated officers within each district that are community relations officers. So I think there's, that's a start, and they've increased the number, because when we started with the work, it was, I think, a few, like 3, now there's, over 20, which I think is significant, but there's still a lot more work to be done in that area, so that it's just embedded within the culture of our department. There is a question that someone asked if one of the kids on the call would be comfortable sharing what an ambassador for community policing means. Ayana, can you speak to that? Ayana is, what are you, a senior, junior at Villa Angeles?
Senior.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Let me go.
Yep, go ahead.
So basically, like where I live at now, there's not like much community policing. Like I wouldn't be able to tell you like a single police officer in my neighborhood. But going back home to where like I was raised at, I could tell you at least like 6 to 7 police officers, because they make sure they get out there for us. Like I remember growing up on Halloween, we would go to the police station and the police officers would like give out candy bags and like hot dogs, popcorn, things like that. There will be days where they have like carnivals in the neighborhood. There always be police officers that you knew there. When we had the program last year, the police officers actually came out and watched When They See Us with us, and that was meaningful for I would say most of us in the program, because that's a rough topic to speak on, and just see that a police officer is willing to have that conversation, even though it is a tough conversation, it was meaningful to us. It meant a lot that even though it was showing like the justice system failing some children, African American children, and they're part of the justice system, it showed like that they were able to get out of their comfort to like help us and to understand the situation with us. So I would say my experience with the like community policing, it has been great. Like I never really had any bad altercations with police officers because I know the police officers in my community.
Thanks, Ayana.
I think we have time for one more question. And as we hear about the work that you're doing and the efforts in the community, how can those of us on the call and those in our networks help support you and raise awareness of the work you're doing?
Grant, is that you?
Could be you, could be me. So obviously, if you can spend a little bit of time on our website at clevelandpolicefoundation.org, there's opportunities to share that. There's opportunities to get involved as volunteers, as mentors, depending on your level of engagement. There's opportunities to give financially. Obviously, dollars are very hard to come by these days. You can give unrestricted dollars to the operations of the Cleveland Police Foundation. You can restrict it to programs like the pipeline program. And that reminds me that I do want to thank both Key Bank as well as the Cleveland Browns for their initial sponsorship, and the city of Cleveland, to be honest, for their sponsorship in allowing us to do the work that we do with the pipeline program. So we need your help. We need your advocacy. We need your understanding, and all will help in different ways, because it's a really difficult battle out there. I don't know if the battle is solvable overnight, but I do know pointing fingers at them versus us, or we versus them, where all these members are members of the community. The officers, the law enforcement people, me, the city and the neighborhood people are all members of the community. And it's going to take education, it's going to take effort, it's going to take some soul searching and some really difficult discussions that I think that time is right for that. So that would be my 1 minute suggestion. Angela, anything to add?
Yeah, just so for some immediate things, we have mock interviews and capstone competitions at the end of our program. So the last week of July, on Tuesday and Wednesday, they will have their competition. So if anyone would like to volunteer to serve as interviewers and judges for our competitions, that would be awesome. They're conducting their interviews virtually, since that's the world that we live in. And they'll also do their competitions this year virtually as well. So just to give them that training of this new normal. And then just, during the school year, post-summer, our kids are also looking for opportunities during the school year for employment. So that would be another way to help our kids. They are getting trained. They're getting certified with the essential skills that every employer wants. Two of those being problem solving and self-management. And then they'll also have their PowerPoint certification. So we have awesome kids that will be career ready. So if anyone would like to extend opportunities, see me.
Grant and Angela, thank you so much for sharing your work in the community with us today. And to our students who jumped in and shared their experiences, thank you so much. Just so wonderful to have your voice here in the conversation today. And with that, I'm going to welcome back Mary Ann.
Okay, great. So special thanks to Angela and Grant for the truly important work that you're doing in the community, and that's needed now more than ever. And any opportunity we have to help you spread the word, we're happy to do so. to our young people, thank you for the great work that you're doing this summer, and we hope you continue on this path because we really need good quality leaders in our public safety forces. So thank you for taking that first step.